All right. Okay, people, listen up. You had good lunch? Everybody had good lunch? How many people did not have lunch? Me neither. Uh, so I think what we're going to be eating is a whole lot of not word salad, no word salads here. So we're going to have some a really fascinating, and it's coming from the horse's mouth, very fascinating a panel, which is going to be like a podcast style. So you will experience some very exciting discussions, I hope, and with your help, because we want you to interject. So the podcast style is where you can stop us and you can ask, and you could also challenge the claims or the statements that we're making. It is all meant to get you engaged, to share your own expertise with us and ask interesting questions. So with that, I want to make a very quick introduction to my dear podcast/panelists. And on stage, I would like to invite Andrew van der Haar. Welcome, Andrew.
Okay. Where would you like me to sit then?
Sit wherever you want.
Okay, then
so
I'll go.
Andrew is a chairman, a founder of Fiber Carrier Association, I should say, that FCA, and has been managing data centers. In fact, our own one of our own DGX boxes has, I've had the fortune to run in his data center before he exited that venture to do great things. The reason why I'm doing the introduction is, Andrew, because normally you lose 15 minutes of introductions because, when you ask someone, tell us about yourself, they'll just, spend insane amount of time doing that.
I will keep it short then, if I.
And you should keep me in check as well.
All right, that's good.
And my next panelist, podcaster, is Thomas Schmidt. Thomas is a co-founder, chief sales officer at Amber AI, NVIDIA elite partner, and they have decades of history in building AI, even before AI was a fancy term, with academics who have actually built some really interesting products and services. Amber AI is really expanding in Europe, but also in the Middle East. So welcome, Thomas. Thanks. And finally, obviously, and not the least, we have our friend Gauvain. It's interesting. You could have sit, if you could sit here as well. Gauvain is also. I had a very interesting conversation introducing and get to know each other with Gauvain. Broad, over 2 decades of experience working in various industries. Has done his own startups and is now CTO, is that correct? At Eviden. How many people know Eviden? Right? So we also have the fortune of actually training our large language model, which in Bologna, it's called Leonardo, 7th largest data center in the world, as per the data center HPC standings. And obviously, Eviden is the one that has been supplying those infrastructures, not just to Leonardo, but also to all the other major data centers in Europe. Is that?
Absolutely.
Yeah? I will not exaggerate all the exaggerated claims we're going to make together. So with that, and myself, I'm Terry. I'm going to be your moderator, host, and we're going to have a very interesting discussion around building. Actually, I wrote this myself. I'm still looking at a paper. So building efficient Gen AI data centers. In Europe, there is this consensus where Ursula von der Leyen, our chair at the EU Commission, has announced a CERN for AI with 100 billion euros of investments that need to go into AI. So we're going to be having an interesting conversation across the board where we're going to try to explore at the deployment level, at the hardware and software stack level, where because you're deploying data centers, you know all the pains. I know the pain because we spent 8 months training that, and we knew how the clusters were performing. And then as an elite NVIDIA partner, but also where you have done a lot of DIY installations for your customers for AI infrastructures. Thomas, you know a lot as well yourself. And Andrew, I was at I did a keynote for your event last week. Yep. So you understand the fiber, everything that is under the ground and how it needs to be serviced. So that's going to be the discussion. And so I'm just going to start with probably just a challenge statement that, CERN for AI and all those big fancy terms that, our Eurocrats are promising and promoting is failed project before it starts.
Who wants to start?
I'm curious what you want to say about that.
I mean, why you say that? Investment level?
Yeah, okay, so here's the CERN for AI. Every time when I'm trying to think in terms of when Peter Thiel really says, when you say, I have a startup which does cloud computing and has AI and it has infused UI, UX, they say, I don't want to make investment in your startup. So when you make a statement like CERN AI, then I sort of naturally tend to sort of gravitate into, did they think about it? Do they know what they are up for? Are they really aware that the data center build out, where at the network layer, we spoke about spine leaf, different new architectures that are actually eliminating three-tier architectures in data center. Do we have that know-how to actually deploy these at deployment level, which you have done? And then just saying 100 billion because Microsoft, Bill Gates said, it's going to take 100 billion to build a data center. I don't care where I'm going to build it. And so I'm thinking a billionaire versus a whole European Commission with, let's say, the leader of Europe making those kind of statements. Have we thought it through?
Yeah, so first, in terms of know-how and experience, what I'm observing is that there is a lot of convergence between the HPC world and the AI world. And if you look at before AI was mainstream and known by the large public like it is now, a lot of people worked on very large infrastructures, both in terms of very large compute capacities, network bandwidth and latency issues, as well as very large storage capacities, petabyte scale. So it's not like the challenges are fully new to me. It's something that we know. What is true is that some components are changing. The network architectures are changing. The type of components are changing. In HPC, we used to leverage much more CPU, nice GPU, and it's changing a lot in the pressure on the infrastructure in terms of energy consumption, in terms of cooling. And that's what we work on, I would say, on a day-to-day basis. And for example, we focus a lot on how do we cool.
But, okay, hang on, stop. We're not here to listen to pitch of what Eviden has been doing.
But it's not us, it's the community. Eviden, NVIDIA, HP, we're all in the same boat, and we all have the same scientific problems. It's not us in particular. And honestly, what I would say that some of them, and surprisingly not the one you would think, have an advance compared to each other due to their HPC experience. So my thinking is that, yes, it's going, we have a lot of challenge ahead of us. Yeah. The challenge are around energy consumption. I think it's the main one, but there is some hidden challenges in terms of networking, as well as, I would say, the efficiency of all this. And efficiency not only for sustainability concerns, but as well for performance, because in the end, how it works, how it has been designed, the data scientists, what I see, they don't mind. What they want is that it needs to work 24/7, it needs to run fast. When they do a training, they want this to be the most efficient possible. And the answer, infrastructure is a part, software is another part.
So hardware, software, obviously, there's a lot of, it's a steep learning curve. And honestly, I can tell you guys, I mean, Andrew, you and I were having this discussion last week as well, but also in between. I'm super concerned, besides that, Netherlands is a super small country with low footprint, and we are trying to refurbish, the data centers. We spoke about one just like 20 minutes ago. Yeah. So is it really possible? Can we even do that? Forget about that $100 billion. I mean, even if we get like one, let's say, hang on. Yeah. If I give you $2 billion because Ursula is my girlfriend, and I say, you know, Andrew here, $2 billion. What can we achieve with that?
Well, the money is nice, but I don't think the money is really the issue. I think the collaboration between the countries, that's the issue. And if you look at CERN as your example, that is a success because it's a collaboration between different member states. It's even run by different member states, and even the tube is on Switzerland and on France. There is even, for those who don't know it, in Amsterdam, beneath Amsterdam, there's a smaller ring. It's not working anymore, but if you look at that, they did a great job on bringing all the stakeholders together who wanted to have a research project that they couldn't finance or run by themselves. And that's, I think, for the AI clustering, where I see a traditional failure in a market perspective, that everyone wants to find out their wheel themselves, because they and that's what I think geopolitical is done better in the US and also on the eastern side, on the Chinese side. They say, well, it's nice you have all those small fragmented clusters of research, but bring it all back together. And I think that's something in Europe we're not really capable of doing. Maybe due to the language, to the culture, but I think the best way is to sit together with all the initiatives and say, well, what do you want to have in the end goal? What do you want? And then I come back for your girlfriend's 2 billion.
Okay, my girlfriend might give me 2 billion, but let's say my girlfriend gave me 10 billion. And it is a fact because my German friend is now going to have to answer that question to me. Anyone heard of a dead elephant called Gaia? G-A-I-A.
Gaia X?
Gaia X.
Yeah.
It's a dead elephant.
It is, and actually I wanted to pitch into the question you had before, whether we have the experience, and then I'll get on to Gaia. We do have the experience, and why can I say that? Because globally, a lot of regions come to us to ask for the experience, to help them build, whether it is the Middle East, Asia, whether it is South Americas. They all come and they all invest, and they don't invest a little bit more, they invest 10 times what we do here. So you have this problem with all of these member states, and everybody's cooking their own little soup, and they're not getting on in building something really big. And then you have these dead elephants. You have these big announcements that stuff will happen, but it takes forever. And even then, I mean, the biggest clusters we have here, they are minute compared to what we see across the globe. And that is what scares me a little bit, that we have all of this experience, all of this knowledge, we have all of these amazing researchers.
You can interject each other.
And I agree, but I don't believe it's that much of a problem because, I mean, I agree that we need to have much more governance to have a common objectives across the different member states, but
also speed. It's not just always about
speed, yeah, and but I think it goes as well through governance. If everyone knows what the others are doing and we have the same objective, speed being one objective, maybe it can be better. But in terms of the fact that we don't have big clusters, my view, and we can discuss that even with the audience, is that in any case, we won't be able to scale single clusters indefinitely. We have power limits on the power grid, so in any case, the cluster will have limited size. There are a lot more different aspects, but just this one will stop us. And I think that we should work on federation. Federation, both in terms of which topics we want to address as different member countries, and we have technology to allow for federation. And we should think about federation in a cloud-like experience for the European developers. And then this would allow to break, for me, the boundary of the single cluster size, because then very soon you have access to a virtual cluster made up of different data centers where you can run. And if you look at what is happening in the hyperscalers, and it's already happening now, they built, with a lot of money, very large data centers. And now they cannot even train their one model on a single data center. So they have to think about how you train a model on several data centers, which comes to the point of federation.
Yeah, I think. Remember one of the slides that I was showing last week was the municipality and public area networks, et cetera, and how, some training will happen on the edge. Some training needs to happen at the base layer, and then probably at the spine leaf layer, the GPU layer as well. What do you think about that?
And also the training in time, because I hear a lot of power is an issue. Power is not really the issue. The transport of power from the renewable sources to the user and the timing is the biggest issue. Because if you look at the Netherlands, last summer, the whole summer we had 150% of renewable energy of the total consumption of the Netherlands. So 50% we could not use during daytime. So timing and usage was not set at the correct time. So, and that's, I think, important for the total industry to know, when are you going to use your power for training? Can it be done in the time where you have enough power or excess power? And I think those topics are relevant also for the physical industry. Then they can adapt and invest on that and say, well, okay, we're not investing like we did 10 years or 20 years ago, but we know time is shifting and training times consume more power than running times, for example. I'm not the expert on AI, but maybe it's not true, but things like that, you have to have the industry together and say, well, if you're a physical builder and you have to transport data and you have to get the energy, you have to have the timing right.
Yes, but a lot of the customers we see, they're actually, they're being really challenged by the rapid advancement in technology as well. So we're helping customers now designing and building data centers, and they notice that this design phase and the approval and everything they need for this will take them 2 to 5 years. By that time, the technology will be outdated. They will need a whole different approach. So we also need to find solutions which help them getting there faster as well.
We want to,
we are.
and we're just spicing it up, and I think we should have the 2 mics as well. So if anyone wants to also, chime in, because it's an educational journey. Gauvain, when if I see France, it kind of, we envy France. At least the last 2 years, we've seen Mistral. Actually, they trained on the same data center like we did in Leonardo, and they had a similar distributed strategy to train, because they didn't have the money, although they came from DeepMind and Facebook, so they had some, I guess, street cred. But at least France is is changing something. And I'll give you an example. So I was introduced by another friend of mine who's executive at Shell. He says, "Hey Terry, I know a billionaire, and I can get you in contact with him, and you can go to Station F. If you move your ship and you move your office to Paris, you can raise capital, and we can get you to move." We haven't moved, but I think France is still kind of showing some examples of breaking away from and obviously this was a challenge statement. I say we want to trying to do something, and I'm trying to just push into a little bit of a capitalist direction, saying that you do need people with capital and commitment to say, let me put in 200 million, let me put in 500 million euros, and let's get this startup off the road, because that can become probably the next SAP, or it would be probably the next ASML of AI. And so what is different in France versus us in Netherlands and in Germany and perhaps in Croatia are not able to get? Are we missing something?
Honestly, it's hard for me to answer these questions, because I don't know enough how the other countries operate, but I can say that it's true that there is this concept called French Tech that has been pushed directly by the government, talking between public and private, and there is this idea of having kind of a global community interacting together, discussing regularly, so I know who you're talking about, by the way, and yes, the fact that probably this billionaire is kind of tech savvy. And I mean, he understands what the digital world is. And that's always a question I have between Europe and US. that maybe Europe, and again, I can be challenged on that, but maybe we're more into industry, big industry, car manufacturing, energy industry, things like this. And US, they onboarded on the digital journey. And some people in France, they have this mindset. And that helps because before this kind of guy with large pockets came into the play,
Yeah,
it
but
was,
there's
it was hard.
another thing I was just thinking, because there is the advocacy of the French AI pioneers, and you would know most of the names, I guess, if you're in AI world. Yann LeCun obviously is very well known, but even if you have, guys who are working at Google, the inventor of Keras, for example, he just left Google to start his own startup. There's a lot of French community, but also French-speaking guys as well who are in Canada. There seems to be a direct line from wherever this expat community is of great researchers with President Macron. And I'm just trying to, I don't want to, I just influence with people who have done influential things. It's a massive community where DeepMind and Facebook there's a whole lot of French influence, which is helpful, which, we are all grateful for.
I'm actually super jealous about the French government and them seeing what AI can do and what data can do for us. And you hit it on the nail. Our industry in Germany, for example, it's very, let's say, old-fashioned and risk-averse. So they see this movement, but they're not catching the train quickly enough. And then you see there is some trouble with BMW, with all of these big players in our industry, which were always the companies that generated a huge amount of wealth in Germany, for example. And it is a bit, I think it is a bit sad that our biggest players now need to go across the pond and go to Rivian, for example, to get their software as well, because we didn't manage it quickly enough ourselves. But I think it is also because, again, government on our side has not seen the value enough to invest itself. I think government can be one of the biggest players and pushers for new technology, and imagine our government being more digital, using Gen AI, using chatbots. It would improve not only our whole lives, but it would also give the signal to all of our companies out there that this is the way to go. And I think that's what the French people, the French government is doing very well.
And the bridge building. Okay,
bridge
Andrew,
building.
let's go to talk about bridge. You just flew from Brussels. You announced this wonderful alliance to spread your word, not just within the fiber optic community in the Netherlands, but also Europe. So,
yeah, I think from a point of view from the digital infrastructure and for policy makings in Europe, we have the Digital Decade. It's a program to get everyone on board within Europe, so around 450 million people who are living in Europe to get gigabit access. But on the other hand, if you have a gigabit access, you have to do something with it, or and you also have to have skills for the people who work in the industry, but also the people who use it. And also there's a program for companies to convert, especially for Germany. They did had a great announcement, I think 2 months ago. They abandoned the fax machine. It was that was in the telecom papers, really. And so fax was still used in Germany. So I don't say fax is wrong. It's a bit timeless machine, but it
is an ongoing German joke.
It does get the message from A to B, so that's a good point, but it can be faster. So I think from the government, it's good that there's awareness within every member state what AI can do and what's needed to be done. So a power issue is an issue we have to address, we have to look at it. Connectivity, there can be an issue if you don't invest in time. So you have a big AI factory somewhere, but if the AI is only there and you can't transfer it to the consumer or to the user, what use would it be that you have all that power over there or the processing power? So and that's the ecosystem that needs to be built as well. And politicians, especially, one small example. I was active in the province of Groningen in the Netherlands. And that was a long time ago when we were talking about 4G. And he said, well, why do we need 4G? I said, I don't know why you need 4G. It's handy. You have a mobile. You can look something up on your... It was a policy maker from the province. And he said, well, I'm not going to allow that we're going to put up 4G more masts. I said, okay, yeah, you have to do what you have to do. And then a year later, he came to me and said, Andrew, we have a problem in Groningen. I said, what problem is it? We don't have 4G. I said, how do you notice? He said, well, my daughter came home, and she says, I can't use my phone, Dad. And then suddenly, the doors opened in policy making, and of course, you notice, you live near Groningen, there's 4G and even 5G. So there also need to be an incentive for the policymakers to see why they have to jump on the train and start to invest in it.
You wanted to say something, Gauvain?
No. It was just to your previous point about the importance of the network and the network access, and that's one of our lessons learned. You know, working with HPC centers. So not now, because now it's something they know, but when AI started and we wanted to run AI on this HPC system, they were not ready in terms of network connectivity.
No. Yeah.
And that was one of the challenge we had. And so now it's something that we know. We build sufficient, I would say, connectivity, and so it's not a technology problem. It's just that it was not part of their RFP.
No,
and so
it's
now
just
they
they
know.
think it
Now
is
they know,
there.
but we had to go through this phase where we have good compute capacity, but how do we bring the data?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So we need to build, we spoke about structural issues. We also spoke about desire, motivation, gut, and also flashy statements. Thomas, tell me, in the end, you have to build. I think the consensus is there. We may be a couple of years late. I don't think, we're literally writing it off. There is the huge EU machinery is moving. So I want to just narrow it down to, like you said, BMW or Saab or Daimler. When you're talking to these customers, when you tell them about this, hyperscaler, this super pod, and all these fancy, lovely terminologies, which you and I probably may understand because but how are they responding to, one, AI hasn't proven its worth. I'm not here to tell AI to sing me songs. How is it going to solve my problem is that the front end, and then in the back, and you're telling from back end that it's going to solve all your problems. So when it comes to deployment of the pods where you're a really an elite partner, what are the challenges that you're facing, and what is the success metric that you measure on how to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, actually, it is like I said before. You mentioned all of this. We always get asked for the ROI for all kind of AI use cases, for example, where we have to say, look, these metrics don't exist yet. These metrics will come together once we start deploying and working on this. But what I can tell you is that some of the brightest minds in economics and tech, they are working on this, and they have been working on this for years. So you have to get ahead, you have to start, and we're seeing more and more movement in Germany. So I don't want to be this doomsayer. We're seeing a lot of great movement going on. It could be faster, but what I always try to tell our customers as well is you need to understand we will not catch up to the US, for example. It's not even I don't think that should be the goal. We should not try to build the biggest data center globally, but we should be able to be sovereign and to be sure that we can ensure that the companies we have here can protect their data, and they are protected against whatever government will do, for example, on the US side, or whatever will happen in Asia. It is now a fairly chaotic time, I think we can all agree. And I believe it is a smart move to make sure that you are at least within a European consensus capable of protecting your members and your companies here. So that is what I'm trying to give the customers as well. It is not only just getting the ROI, it is also about knowing where your data is.
You're trying to educate them, which is great, because if you deliver the cluster, the procurement signs the check, and no one takes the ownership of what happens. Obviously, the customers are not that stupid. But at the deployment of larger scales, when you get, you have to Lumi or that. What's the name of the data center in Barcelona? Where they change the church, convert the church into.
Barcelona, it's called Barcelona Supercomputer.
Yeah. It was an old church.
Yes.
And, I'm sure it's not just, Eviden is building, data centers and infrastructure. So at that larger scale, when these requests come that we need 50,000 B200 GPUs, I don't know, is there any requests right now?
When you mean,
is there Blackwell 200? I mean,
yes,
yeah,
it's in
there is a
roadmap.
need.
Yeah, we follow the roadmap of the GPU vendors. So NVIDIA.
But I mean, within Europe, data centers, these 6-7 data centers,
the question we have on all this, it's a different question. It's a lead time.
Yeah.
So in fact, but it's something that we see on all aspects of the stack. So it's not like we would not like to deliver the latest GPU. It's just that we are not provided fast enough or the latest GPU. But honestly, if you look at the time it takes to build an infrastructure and to roll out, so far it has not been a problem. So yes, we have requests for B200, but right now, as far as I know, I'm not on a day-to-day basis on operations, but as far as I know, it's not a massive deployment right now. But I don't believe that the challenge is which GPU we want to take, is how to maximize. Something I'm seeing is more and more is how we maximize the investment. And there are a lot of answers on that. It's efficiency at all level. The answer could go down for kind of 30 minutes on this, so I won't go. But there are other challenges, I think, than understanding which latest GPU we want to deploy. And for us, I think the challenge we have is, as well as European, and because of the experience we have with all these LLM, we started to build, and it goes back to the business metrics. Yeah. We are using a lot of technology, but the question is for what?
Yeah.
And then maybe an approach is to look at first the business case, then choose the technology, and then because we're doing a lot of try and fail, and we see, and it's not us, in the community, seeing a lot of projects consuming a lot of energy, not even electricity. I'm talking human energy, the developers, etc. And then when it comes to the business case, people wonder, okay, but what do we do now with that? How much will it cost for us? Is it making sense from an ROI standpoint? And it's like, in sometimes we see that as being after, and our approach is to put that like at the first questions.
Awesome. So, yesterday we had the speakers and the vendors where we had a panel yesterday as well. We coincidentally sat together in one panel discussion we were talking about. So I raised another sort of question around calling it GPU landfill, meaning, you see in other parts of the world when, garbage is being sort of stacked up like little mountains. So that's what I mean with a GPU landfill. And we were quite concerned. We still share the concern that GPU today's are don't have much longevity, apparently, for those who are actually using them increasingly, and that, we spoke about that, a researcher from Google was talking about 1 year, and then you'll have to replace that GPU, or probably, NVIDIA is into constantly, supporting their customers. B200, the new deployments, just a couple of days ago I read, they had super extreme overheating issues. So that creates that, besides the lead time, that's a massive sort of loss of productivity for any company. So how do we actually? Maybe I'll start with you, and then I'll stop you if you hope you don't mind, right?
Yeah.
So because we spoke about this, so we can help our colleagues also kind of participate. So how do you think we can balance this innovation? So we need to innovate. We need to miniaturize. We need to quantize the models. We need to create smaller models. We need to reduce the footprint of that energy footprint at a GPU level, at kilowatt hour level. And then at the bottom, we have this huge dilemma around the environmental impact. So while we want to be creating hyper-intelligent hyperscalers, like twice hyper square, how are we going to find the balance between the two?
Between innovation and sustainability?
Yes.
I would answer, maybe it's a caricature, but I will answer with AI. I think we need to...
More GPUs?
No, not necessarily. we need to be more intelligent. What I'm observing is that right now we have a lot of things that are static. If we could be more dynamic, AI-driven in the way that we even operate the infrastructure, and I'm not talking about choosing the right tool for the job when you build the use cases, but we have a lot of optimization possibilities, both in the way we design the infrastructure, and for example, we know, and we had this talk this morning from Next Silicon guy. He said, I have a technology that can be 4 times more efficient than GPU. We know that there are components, and it's part of our roadmap, that can be 10 times more efficient than GPU. But we know as well that beyond that, we need to change the paradigm in what we do in AI, meaning neuromorphic or this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we know that we have to optimize, okay, but if we put AI in between in the way we operate the infrastructure, how you place your jobs when you're doing training, taking into account what we discussed, what's the availability of the grid at this certain point in time, you anticipate. We're already using AI to anticipate. We talk about GPU failures. What you did not touch upon, which we see, is a network fabrics failure. That is a problem. We put AI to do a predictive maintenance. So if we put AI inside our infrastructure run, we can, I think.
So network fabric failure,
Yeah.
I'm not an expert. What does that mean? The routers going bust, or?
There are some, you put a lot of data to a lot of machines, and sometimes you observe that some of the routes, they're failing.
Oh.
So you have to do something, and sometimes it's linked to the hardware infrastructure.
And what is, so the traffic, so we...
The traffic between the GPU, I'm talking.
Oh, inter-GPU, okay.
Inter-GPU.
Got it. So
And
that
as well...
And is that training or inferencing?
So we're focused a lot on training, on inferencing. You inference everywhere. So I don't have, it's not that we're not doing it, but we have less return of experience because it's more done by the customers themselves. So I don't know exactly what are the main issues on inferencing at scale. But on training, for sure, we see that the more you train, the model is large, the larger the model, the more problems you face. And it's not us, again, it's the industry.
Yeah,
that's one of the
absolutely.
challenge all the hyperscalers are seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also think taking into account, yesterday there was the news that there was a fiber cut in the Baltic Sea, maybe if you heard or not, but that has an impact on the internet traffic and traffic at all between data centers. Last year there was also some fiber cuts in the Red Sea with the Houthis. Four fiber cuts were done. And it took a long time to repair those cables. And all the traffic from the Orient normally traveled through the Red Sea going into Europe, now had to travel the same route as the ships done. But if you look at the news, you would have seen the news, oh, you can't use the Red Sea and the canal to go into Europe, so they have to go all the way down to South Africa and up. That takes a lot of time, extra time costs money, but the same is with internet traffic. And if you have critical environment and you have a spot in Indonesia and you have a spot in Marseille, then it will go all the way down through South Africa and then up again to Europe. And that takes much more time. And much more time means much more routers, much more traffic, and that can make a traffic jam on the way for data. So that's something where you say, okay, you have a big training and you're finished and you want to export that old training results back to Europe, then nobody takes into account that has to go through all the fibers.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, for one, the networking cluster, like the networking layers, get hugely complicated in these big AI clusters. I mean, if you would see one of those trees and you see it from far away, it looks like just one ball of ink because it's so many layers going from north to south, from west to east, etc. And I actually have an anecdote from one of the developers at NVIDIA. And during the pandemic, he told me, you know, our new, I think it was NDR 200, the cables, the inside, it's smaller than the coronavirus. So there is a lot of potential hardware failures that can happen. There's a lot of software failures that can happen. network is one of the most complicated things in big clusters. And it is one of the most costly things if you do it wrong, because then you have to take it all down, you have to recount it.
So, wow, you guys found the time to come now? So we will extend this panel another 45 minutes. Welcome, you're not allowed to leave. All right, we still have 7.5 minutes. But the reason why we were trying to do this a bit of theatrics, but my colleagues are, they have decades of experience. Obviously, we are not trying to undermine that, and we want you to ask challenging questions, and let's challenge the status quo. So we have the mics. I hope you guys are comfortable with that.
Yeah.
We have the mics. We're going to pass the mics. I'm going to walk over to you guys if you want. We can do that. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Anyone?
Here in the front.
Tobias, you should also ask a question. I know you've been writing a lot of newsletters, but we want to see if you can also challenge us here.
All right, thanks for the discussion until now. I have a question. You already mentioned it a bit. Andrew, I work in the energy industry, and flexibility is going to be one of the biggest challenges that we are facing, not just in Europe, but especially also in Europe.
Yeah.
And me as a non-AI expert, for me, it seems like, okay, data centers, perfect solution for providing flexibility. So maybe you can give a bit more, insight. What's your thoughts on that? And if this is actually a valid thing, just to say this is a possibility, or if you're telling me now this is not possible.
Yeah, it is a possibility, and currently a lot of data centers are working on helping the grid on net congestion, where they say, well, we were willing or we are willing to invest in more battery clusters or alternative sources or electrolyzers storing hydrogen. But then legislation is always a difficult part. Also from an old type for the Netherlands with the energy grid, TenneT, they had like a cluster of the NSA's, the aggregaten, what's it called? Aggregaten, the generators, sorry, the generators. So when there was a problem on the net, then the generators could start up faster than even a gas turbine factory for producing energy. So all parts on that's currently investigating, and some of the data centers are already supporting the grid. And I think that's an awareness where most of the industry is not looking at, that you can support the grid with a data center, because it's already designed to work on an island, only normally focused inside for all the customers that are inside, but you can also direct it to the other side. And also the vendors on UPSs, they are building equipment that can redirect inside and outside. So it's good to have a look if you have possibilities for data center clusters to help and support the grid. But they're not the only solutions, because of course they need power to drive those AI machines, high performance computers, or normal servers, etc.
Happy?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, guys? There's. See, I'm putting you on the spot, so you have to ask. But please feel free to ask. This is an educated discussion, and we want to learn as much as we can before we leave.
Yeah, so one question, or more of an observation that I have, and I have a very German perspective on it, because I'm from Germany. I myself have kind of given up on hoping that government will fund big AI initiatives. I've been in the German AI Association for 4 years. We've been trying to push a German AI cluster to the government and pitch it. Didn't work out, and it was an investment which was equivalent to building 10 kilometers of autobahn or so, just to put that into perspective, right? And it didn't happen. So, and on the other hand side, there are important things happening in Germany. For example, I don't know who of you knows EPI. EPI is funded by the Dieter Schwarz Stiftung in Heilbronn. It's a $2 billion investment of essentially turning Heilbronn, a very small city, into the leading German AI hub. And they are building a huge campus, building huge universities, having massive investments. And if I look at all the progress that AI has seen in the recent years, most of that, actually all of that, has been funded by high net worth individuals, private individuals. And I'm wondering, maybe the focus should kind of like shift to take the money that is there and allow those people, just to build these things really quickly. I don't know if that really is the best solution, but yeah, I kind of lost hope on like hoping of, for governments to kind of like build these like super high performance clusters and then give it away for, the public or for the greater good. Because I haven't seen that. Yeah.
So I think if I may, so you're saying, why can't we just be capitalist enough in the conscious way to actually achieve something in a certain scale of time, which that investor who is putting his wealth, family wealth, in Sweden, as you know, also, the Wallenberg family has made this massive, what was that, how many billions of, I think 8 billion euros of their own capital together with NVIDIA to set up that supercluster. I forgot the name of the wonderful supercluster they have there in Sweden. So, so the question is, to speed it up, we have to capitalize. So we are kind of having a general consensus. France has a model that is kind of demonstrating in the southern region of Europe that it's possible. So what can we do as professionals? Lobbying is a route. Deployment is, and showing the use cases to others who are not unexposed is the route. In the Netherlands, for example, probably I'll just try to make it more. Why are we not able to get ASML founders? And I know that the founders, but again, I know because I hear from a guy who hears from another guy that is walking around with $800 million euros, which he wants to invest in Groningen.
Yeah, it's
but I haven't met him.
Province. Yeah,
I mean, okay, he thinks maybe I'm a little fish, but so somehow we have this, cardiac kind of arrest situation. How can we replicate that French model in which they're not abandoning their sort of governance, and there might be obviously areas of improvement, but they're embracing a culture in which Macron is repeatedly going out and saying, I mean, our Dutch ministry or the German, they're not taking a stance. I mean, Macron just said a couple of days ago, was it, that we have to, there's no option, otherwise we're going to lose. So what can we do?
Yes, it's a good question. First, like the Heilbronn situation, I think that's a really nice view, because it's not focused from a data center perspective. Because if you look at it from a data perspective or from an operator, they are basically looking at a piece of land where you can get power, where you can get the connectivity, and then you start looking for customers. And if that's a mismatch, if a Heilbronn University is not in the face of that same company who wanted to invest in a data center, then there is a mismatch. And I think that's for also for politicians, where they say, well, we're from, it's Hessen, I think, Heilbronn is the Bundes area. Yeah. So where they only look locally, and they say, well, we want to keep it in Heilbronn because that's close by, the university is there, so it's good for the ecosystem in place. So and that's where you look from the local politicians. They look microscopic to their area, and they don't have a wider view. And I think that's for France. They says, well, as Macron says, well, if we lack and we stay behind, we're going to.
But we want to end on an optimistic note. So we're out of time, and we're going to restart. No, I'm just kidding. So in 2 sentences, innovation, environmental impact, still being able to find Europe's own destiny, because that's what I'm hearing. No need to ape America's approach. No need to go into an extremely authoritarian way of working where we have in the East. In 2 sentences, what do we need to do? All the 3 of you, starting with you.
Okay, so I think we need to collaborate further, helped by the European institutions for governance purpose. We need to focus on some use cases, industry objectives, and work through federation. That's what I would say.
Collaborate, focus on use cases, and
and industry. So we need to work cross-country, cross-industries,
Cross-country,
but not on everything. Focus.
What is the fourth point? Because we don't want to steal.
I believe
Global.
AI is one of the prime things that the EU can work together on. What the EU is made for, to cooperate and to share data and to build something together, instead of everybody doing their own thing.
Democratizing data sharing is important, and so cooperation is repeating.
I think a good thing is we have an AI Act, so we have guidelines and settings where we can work and build out Europe on the AI. So that's, I think, a good point.
Perfect. Thank you very much. A huge round of applause for my colleagues.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah.
Thanks, Terry.
Thomas, Andrew, thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, and on behalf of the organizing team, this is for you.
Thank you.